Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very, very well, having a good Tuesday. Of course, it's the day after Monday Night Raw and a very heavy weekend, so there is a ton of news to get into. So let's get straight into today's story and let's kick off with more news about Brodie Lee. Of course, the tragic passing of Brodie Lee over the weekend at the age of 41, way too young age of 41. And we have some more details now about... We spoke about this yesterday when we spoke about the news yesterday, and we spoke about that article. I'm not going to reference where it was, who wrote it. It was a trash article. It was ridiculous. It wasn't journalism. It was self-serving. It was speculation. It was bad taste. It was horrific, is what it was. But we do have a bit of an update as to really put to bed any of those baseless claims. And actually, we've got a report by Sean Ross Sapp over there at Fightful, which is, I know he doesn't like to refer to himself as a journalist, but it's real journalism. It's asking questions, it's sticking to facts, it's what everyone in that field should aim to be, and credit to him for doing this report. But essentially, Sean Ross Sapp has reported that basically, we last saw Brodie Lee, of course, wrestle on the October 7 edition of AEW Dynamite, where he dropped the TNT Championship to Cody Rhodes. Now, he was featured on the October 12 episode of Being the Elite on YouTube, but unfortunately, that was his last All Elite Wrestling appearance. That month, Brodie Lee, Jon Huber, experienced difficulties working out and was eventually hospitalized. Now, in speaking with members of the All Elite Wrestling roster and staff, Sean Ross Sapp has reported that many of them were informed of Brodie Lee's illness and severity quite a while ago, going far back as early as November. Now, they were asked to respect the privacy of the family as Brodie Lee battled this illness, and did so right up until his passing. Now, one AEW wrestler who spoke to Sean Ross Sapp noted that they wanted to dispel that the idea had anything scandalous happened and associated with it beyond them losing a great friend and a revered personality. Now, Huber's wife Amanda noted on Saturday night, shortly after Brodie Lee's passing, that he passed away due to a non-COVID related lung illness. And there's been more details revealed about this as well by Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer on Wrestling Observer Radio. He's basically said that anyone that is propelling the myth or the baseless accusations or claims that there was any kind of cover-up or that he did have COVID-19 and the family and All Elite Wrestling was covering up, it's just not true. It's just not true, as everyone knew, because why would you imply that a grieving widow is lying? It is heartless to suggest that. That's why that article was total BS. But Meltzer noted that Brodie Lee not only underwent COVID tests before every single show that he wrestled on for AEW right up until early October, but once he was hospitalized due to this lung issue, he was tested nearly every day during his time where he was in hospital. So he was tested many times while he was in the hospital, and rumors that he did have COVID-19 can, quote, be legitimately ruled out. That is according to Dave Meltzer and according to everyone that's actually spoken to people involved with AEW close to the situation. Not people that are doing baseless conspiracy theory claims. Not everything is a conspiracy theory. Now, Meltzer also mentioned that Lee, quote, did not want any photos of him in that condition and was strictly against the publicity. As previously reported earlier, Amanda, his wife, kept everyone in AEW informed of his worsening condition since October, but they didn't want the news to leak out. And unfortunately, as we find out more details about this after his shocking passing, we know that now Brodie Lee was actually hospitalized for roughly 2 months due to this issue. Now, the idea was initially that when Brodie Lee had his final match against Cody Rhodes back in October in the dog collar match, the idea was to write Brodie Lee off of TV for a couple of weeks, just to sell the injuries of the match, and then he would return. But it was during this time off that Brodie Lee began experiencing some symptoms of his lung ailment. This is according to Dave Meltzer also. He couldn't finish his workouts on his Peloton bicycle at home, and he couldn't figure out why he was unable to go through his regular workout regimen. If you go back and watch or listen to the Brodie Lee AEW Unrestricted podcast, he did that and filmed that and recorded that. I think it's something like a couple of weeks after the dog collar match, and it's quite haunting to listen to actually now, because if you go back and listen to it, he makes reference to it. He makes reference that I tried to do a workout on my Peloton bike the other day, and it was the first time I ever had to quit a workout, and I'm not sure why. Now, at the time he said, oh, but I'm feeling better, and I think it was just whatever was left over from that grueling match he had with Cody. Of course, we now know that it was the start of the lung issue, but it's quite haunting to listen to. But I think, like many people, myself included, I've been going back and listening and watching to a lot of Brodie Lee stuff over the last couple of days just to try and wrap my head around the situation. But going back to what Meltzer was saying on the Wrestling Observer Radio, towards the end of October, by all accounts, according to Meltzer, Brodie Lee's lungs effectively stopped working and he was rushed to a clinic in Jacksonville, Florida. The situation, quote, got grave and AEW was aware of the severity of Brodie Lee's condition. And as previously noted on social media, and quite a few people have mentioned this, Kenny Omega and members of the AEW roster did a segment, I believe it was last week, whereby it was a dark segment after the show where Brodie Lee Jr., of course Jon Huber's son, came out and actually defeated Kenny Omega for the AEW World Championship, and then of course Brodie Lee tragically passed away a week later. Now, we now probably know why that segment and why that whole event took place. Probably a way of trying to help cheer the family up, try and give some pleasure and some joy to his young children, take their mind off of it. It also might have been for the benefit of Jon Huber himself to see his son get inside of a wrestling ring and become the world champion before his untimely passing. It's just so, even days removed now, it still doesn't seem real. Especially seeing the tributes that we've seen over the last couple of days. It's been heartwarming, but also heartbreaking at the same time. And I don't know about you, I just can't wrap my head around it. It doesn't seem real. It's a real tough one to take, and it's so sad, because once you hear all of these tributes, it is so rare in the world of pro wrestling that you see all of these people come out and just widely praise this man for the great father, human being, friend, husband that he was, and it just doesn't seem fair. It just doesn't seem fair whatsoever, and just, you know, it's so difficult. It's so difficult to wrap your head around, and I just can't imagine what the family are going through, what his children, what his wife are going through, what his close friends are going through. And by these reports, it would seem that this has been going on for a couple of months, and it's so tragic. It really is. It's so tragic, and words can't, you know, justify how sad this is. And, you know, as the details as they do come out, you realise just the horrible situation that it is. But I do want to single out and credit people like Sean Ross Sapp for really doing the right thing in this situation. Not posting articles the day after, speculating, conspiracy theories. Oh, what happened? Why did this happen? Questioning all this stuff, accusing a grieving widow of cover-up. I mean, it's just disgusting. It's just disgusting. And I'm glad to see that the wrestling community as a whole and other people in the pro wrestling journalism realm have singled out this article for what it was, and was just BS, clickbait, glory hunting rubbish that was cloaked in the idea of, oh, journalism integrity. I'm just being a journalist. I'm just asking questions. No, you're not. You're being disrespectful. You're being disrespectful in it, and it was disgusting to see. And I didn't even read the whole article. I saw the screenshots from it, and that enough. I didn't want to go anywhere near it and read that, and I didn't want to give it the money of clicks, because of course once you click on those articles, you give them money. That's how it works. So I didn't even want to give them the benefit of giving them some money, because it was wrong. It was just absolutely wrong. It was disgusting. So credit to Sean Ross Sapp for doing the right thing, asking people on the roster that would know questions, being respectful, finding and sticking to the details. Integrity matters. Thank the Lord, integrity still matters in that world. And it's horrible that the more details we hear about it, the more it's horrible to hear. And I feel greatly for his family and for his friends, his loved ones, his wife, his children. It's horrible. But Tony Khan has also announced, speaking of Brodie Lee, that there will be a Dynamite tribute show this week. AEW President and CEO Tony Khan has announced that Wednesday's edition of AEW Dynamite on TNT will now be a special tribute show for Brodie Lee, Jon Huber, aka Luke Harper. He goes by many names. Of course, Lee passed away on Saturday at the age of 41 due to a lung issue. Now, Khan noted that Wednesday's show will celebrate the life of Brodie Lee with tributes and a special card of matches dedicated to the leader of the Dark Order. Khan said the night is intended to honour Lee, but also is intended to honour his family, his wife Amanda, and their sons Brodie Jr. and Nolan. Now, due to this change, the New Year's Smash editions of Dynamite will now take place across the first 2 weeks of 2021, that being January 6 and January 13. Now, they were originally scheduled to be December 30 and January 6, but now due to this tribute show, they have been moved. Now, Khan indicated, once he revealed the card for Wednesday's tribute show, that the favourite wrestlers of Brodie Jr., which they're calling -1 in this case, will team together this Wednesday for various matches for one night only. The following matches were announced for Wednesday's special tribute show on TNT as follows. It will be Cody teaming with Orange Cassidy and 10 from the Dark Order to face up against Team Taz. Colt Cabana and AEW World Tag Team Champions the Young Bucks will face Matt Hardy and Private Party. Hangman Page, Alex Reynolds and John Silver will face MJF, Santana and Ortiz. We'll have Anna Jay and Tay Conti facing Dr. Britt Baker and Penelope Ford. We'll also have Lance Archer, Stu Grayson and Evil Uno facing off against Eddie Kingston, The Butcher and The Blade. This is what Tony Khan said in his tweets. He said, quote, "This Wednesday on hashtag AEW Dynamite, we'll celebrate the life of Jon Huber, Mr. Brodie Lee, with a show including tributes and a special card of matches dedicated to the Exalted One. This night is intended to honor Jon, but this is also for Amanda and their sons Brodie, brackets -1 and Nolan." He also mentioned one about the New Year's Smash episodes, quote, "AEW New Year's Smash will now take place across the first 2 weeks of 2021 on January 6 and January 13 on TNT. I'll announce the card for this week's AEW Dynamite, for which we've seen celebration of Mr. Brodie Lee's life in a moment. Thank you to all who have shared their love for Jon this week." And then Khan followed this up with, I think, a really special, touching note about how tough this week has been on him personally and how he put together this card for the special tribute show for Brodie Lee and his family this week. He said, quote, "I signed the unorthodox trio of Cody Rhodes, Orange Cassidy and Ten as their 3 of -1's favourite wrestlers. There's a lot of history between the 3 of them. Ten is Cody's former student who turned his back on the Nightmare family, but they'll all team up to honour Brodie on Wednesday." He also made another follow-up tweet and said that he worked all night on the card for this week's Lee tribute show and that the response from Lee's wife and kids made him cry. Khan called the week the hardest he's ever experienced. Quote, "I haven't slept much recently. I have a lot of responsibilities across my different roles, but this was the hardest week I've ever experienced. I'll miss Jon very much. I worked all night on a tribute card to honour him. The response from Amanda and from fans made me cry. Thank you." Now, the Brodie Lee tributes continued, of course. Being the Elite drops every Monday, and last night a special tribute episode of Being the Elite dropped on YouTube. I definitely recommend to go watch it. It's a tough watch, I'll be honest. It's a tough watch in the sense that essentially what it is, it's all of the clips that had Brodie Lee involved in Being the Elite with the Dark Order. You have the likes of Alex Reynolds, John Silver, 10, 5, etc., all commenting on it and saying how great Brodie Lee was to work with behind the scenes and how much fun they had while filming Being the Elite with Brodie Lee. They show a couple of outtakes as well. It's a hard watch in the sense that, of course, this is still so raw and it's still so difficult to take of what's happened and what's occurred and the tragic passing of Brodie Lee over the weekend, but it's also very heartwarming to watch because you see that these guys were genuinely having fun. They were having the time of their lives. They were really enjoying playing the role, doing these bits with Brodie Lee, laughing, busting up during the scenes, and watching people laugh and watching people enjoy themselves and listening to these tributes by the likes of John Silver, Alex Reynolds, 5, 10, etc. You really do see the influence that Brodie Lee had on them and just the great man he was, the great mentor he was, and it's difficult to watch, but it's well worth watching. I would definitely recommend you go and watch it. And we had some quotes here that John Silver mentioned. He mentioned, quote, "Brodie was the best. He was the funniest. He was the man. I'm going to miss him so much." Vance, who of course is 10, noted that Brodie Lee did more for him than he could ever imagine a person doing. And it actually kicked off the Being the Elite episode yesterday with Matt Jackson of the Young Bucks. Of course, Being the Elite, they were really the people that kicked it off. He said, quote, "It's Monday, you know what that means. This one's for you, Brodie. We love you, buddy." And it was a tribute, but it was really well done. It was really well done. And going back to the tribute that Tony Khan has scheduled for Wednesday on Dynamite, I've really got to say, and I mentioned this on social media, and I want to make sure I mention it here, that I think the way that AEW have handled this, the way that they've, just welcomed all and every tributes from WWE around the wrestling world, and their social media pages have essentially turned into a tribute page for Brodie Lee and looking after the family of Brodie Lee, with Jim Ross with Brodie Jr. at a Jacksonville Jaguars game at the weekend, and the way they've supported his family, the way that they've paid tribute to Brodie Lee, I think they have to be commended. It's a tribute that is absolutely fitting for the man that Jon Huber was, for the father he was, for the husband he was. I think they've done a tremendous job in truly honouring one of the great big men in the history of the business. And that's what Brodie Lee will go down as. People will say that might have been premature whilst he was still alive, but unfortunately he is no longer with us. And now you have to look at his legacy, and you have to look at his legacy as one of the best big men of all time. He just was. He just was. So I think AEW really do need to be commended on how well they've handled such a tragic and difficult situation. The way that they've been honouring Brodie Lee, Jon Huber, Huber, his life, his career has been absolutely perfection, really, as close to perfect as you can get in this difficult situation. So huge credit to everyone involved with AEW, Tony Khan, Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, etc. All the officials there, I think they've done a fantastic job, and I have no doubts in my mind that Wednesday's tribute show, the same way that Monday's being the Elite show, will be a fitting tribute to the man and the husband and the father that Jon Huber was, and I think they've done a fantastic job. I think they've done an absolutely fantastic job. And the tributes for Brodie Lee continued last night for Monday Night Raw. The tributes for Brodie Lee, Jon Huber, Luke Harper continued this week on WWE Monday Night Raw on the USA Network. We also saw this graphic, as you can see on the screen right now, that opened Monday Night Raw. We also had a variety of superstars pay tribute to Jon Huber, Brodie Lee throughout the broadcast. We had WWE Champion Drew McIntyre pay tribute to Lee using his catchphrases to kick off his promo. He said, "It's Monday, you know what that means? Yeah, yeah, yeah," which of course was Luke Harper catchphrases whilst he was in WWE. The tributes then continued with Xavier Woods wearing an armband with the words Brodie written on it for an 8-man tag match that saw the New Day, Riddle and Jeff Hardy face off against the Hurt Business. Woods also paid tribute by doing Lee's discus clothesline to the Raw Tag Team Champion Cedric Alexander, doing his same mannerism, setting it up. Woods then tweeted a photo of this Brodie armband and wrote, quote, "Love you, man." Tom Phillips also pointed out Woods' clothesline tribute on commentary, saying, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." Phillips also used the "It's Monday, you know what that means" catchphrase to kick things off on Monday Night Raw. Alexa Bliss also used the same catchphrase, "Yeah, yeah, yeah," during her Alexa's Playground segment with Randy Orton as well. So I thought WWE... I mean, we'll go to the next story first, and then I'll give you my opinion on it. So Brian Myers, of course, close friend of Brodie Lee as well, former WWE Superstar, currently with Impact Wrestling. He's called out WWE, essentially, that he wasn't happy with their efforts to honour Brodie Lee during this week's episode of Monday Night Raw on USA Network. Brian Myers took to Twitter last night and called WWE out for not having a 10-bow salute or a video package on Lee's career. He said, quote, "No 10-bow salute, no video package. This man was beloved by his peers and we're all grieving hard. This isn't right." Now, to be honest, I agree. I do agree with Brian Myers, and I know people will say, well, you know, it was Luke Harper and he didn't win a WWE championship and he wasn't a legend, blah, blah, blah. I disagree. I disagree with all of it. As Brian Myers said, this is a really, really tough loss. This is a shocking passing. This is a shocking loss. It really hurts. All pro wrestling deaths hurt. This one hurts extra more because you know of the man that he was. You know about his family. You know that he has young children. And this is a guy that went way, way, way before his time. He went at the age of 41 years of age after a tragic illness over the course of a couple of months. And like Brian Myers says, everyone is grieving hard and they are in shock and they are in mourning. This is a death also that's really seen unite companies around the world in, you know, getting rid of the whole pro wrestling barriers of WWE and AEW or anything like that. And I think he's right. I do agree that I think, given the circumstances of how tragic a passing this was, given the circumstances that this was a guy that was in the prime of his life, regardless if he was with WWE or not, there should have been a 10-bow salute. I think they should have started off the show with everyone on the stage. It's a 3-hour show. It's not exactly as if they were stuck for time or that we really needed time. You know, we couldn't fit all of our 10 recap packages in. They had time to do it. So if they can find time to do all of those recap packages on the show, then I'm pretty sure they could have found time to do a tribute package. There's a ton of them they've done on the WWE Network. He was with WWE for a long time. They could have found time to do a recap package of some sorts. Whether or not they will when it comes to SmackDown or NXT, who knows? But I do agree with Brian Myers that they probably could have done something more there. Obviously, we're going to get the tribute package and whole tribute show for AEW this coming Wednesday. But I agree. I do think there could have been more when it comes to what WWE could have done last night for Monday Night Raw. So I do agree with Brian Myers on that point of view. Let's talk about what happened last night on Monday Night Raw, because we had a very strange ending, didn't we, to Monday Night Raw last night in the latest installment of this storyline when it comes to Randy Orton, The Fiend, and Alexa Bliss. Because we had this bizarre ending to Monday Night Raw as Alexa Bliss challenged Randy Orton to, yes, burn her alive in the middle of the ring. Now, this comes, I think, goes in line with those reports a couple of weeks ago that USA Network was very unhappy with these low WWE Monday Night Raw ratings. Of course, the decline's been there for the better part of a long time, at least 10, 15 years. But this might have led to what we saw last night when it comes to the bizarre and dark ending to Monday Night Raw. Now, last night on Monday Night Raw, Randy Orton, the Viper, was challenged to a match by Alexa Bliss. That was the start of it. And while the WWE Universe and people watching at home thought we might see an intergender match between the two superstars, things took a very sinister and strange turn as Alexa Bliss then challenged Randy Orton to burn her alive in the middle of the ring after dousing herself in gasoline. Now, Orton, being the crazy and disturbed and sadistic heel that he is, he then told Alexa Bliss that he wasn't going to, whilst he wasn't afraid to go the distance, he didn't want to do and give in to what she wanted. He didn't want to let her go and be with the Fiend or anything like that. However, as Randy Orton then approached the former women's champion, the lights went out inside the Thunderdome, like the Fiend was just about to appear. And then the show ended with this bizarre cliffhanger with Randy Orton lighting up a match. It was zooming into Randy Orton, as you had the people on commentary, Samoa Joe, Byron Saxton and Tom Phillips saying, no, Randy Orton, don't do it. And then we went off the air. Full disclosure, when this happened, legitimately, I thought that there was something wrong with BT Sport over here in the UK, because it wouldn't have been the first time that BT Sport have gone off the air too early, or there's been some kind of problem with the live feed. So I was watching it, and then I had to go on social media. It was like, okay, was that the finish that was meant to, that we saw in the United States? I don't know. So it was meant to be a cliffhanger. And this came off the back of the Alexa Bliss's Playground segment earlier on in the night, where she spoke about wanting to have the Fiend as a guest in, I guess that's what they're calling a Moment of Bliss now. It's the Alexa Bliss Playground. Instead, you had Randy Orton appear inside the Firefly Funhouse, obviously empty because Bray Wyatt, the Fiend, is nowhere to be seen. Randy Orton beating up all the puppets that are in there, trashing it. I enjoyed that. To be honest, I didn't hate the final segment. I know I've seen people say, oh, it was rubbish, I hated it. We've asked for more cliffhangers. Obviously, I think it's one thing burning someone alive on pay-per-view on the network where rules are going to be, laxed a little bit. This is still cable TV. I know it's past, it's late at night and all that kind of stuff, but you're still burning people alive. I don't know if necessarily USA Network would want to go that far. I don't know. I didn't hate it though. I didn't hate it, and I thought it was interesting. And certainly it's one of the better things on Monday Night Raw right now. You can't argue with that. We also have a WWE Championship match announced for next week's Legends Night on Monday Night Raw. Keith Lee will face WWE Champion Drew McIntyre. It's now official for the first Raw of 2021. Last night on Raw, we saw Keith Lee defeat Sheamus in the opening match of the show, which was a number one contender match to determine who would be the next challenger for McIntyre and his WWE Championship. Once Keith Lee won the match, it was confirmed that this match will happen next week on Monday Night Raw, which of course is going to be Legends Night. We're going to have WWE Legends and Hall of Famers returning to the show. Obviously, it makes total sense to have a WWE title match on that show. It's a ratings grab. The whole idea of the show in general, of that whole Legends returning, is one massive ratings grab. So why not put a WWE title match on the show? We saw what it did for SmackDown on Christmas Day, having a Universal Championship match inside of a steel cage. It looks to me WWE is doing everything in their power to load up that show and hope and pray that it does a good number next week so they can get people off their backs. But like I mentioned before, it won't change a damn thing. It won't change a single thing about how good or bad Monday Night Raw is. It's just going to be the same. It's going to be the same. Yes, they'll do a good number next week. I'm sure they will. It's the first show of the year, Legends Night, WWE Championship match. People will be all excited. What a great match, and what a great show we'll get next week. But record lows will still come, lower than the 1.5 million live viewers we saw at the end of this year. And there fundamentally needs to be a lot of changes to Monday Night Raw. Now, I will say, I did think Monday Night Raw was good last night, far better than last week and the week before that. I thought Monday Night Raw was actually pretty good for Raw. Nevertheless, it was still a 3-hour show. It still felt long in places, and there was still a ton of recap packages without a tribute package for Luke Harper, Brodie Lee, Jon Huber. So there is still a lot wrong. There is still a lot wrong with that show. But I did think last night it was better for Monday Night Raw in the grand scheme of things. So I will say that. Another thing we found out during last night's episode of Monday Night Raw was that The Miz is once again Mr. Money in the Bank, because The Miz, yes, does have his Money in the Bank briefcase back. Miz is once again in possession of the Money in the Bank briefcase. Now, the Miz recently failed to win the WWE Championship after seemingly cashing in his briefcase championship title opportunity at the TLC pay-per-view as Drew McIntyre defeated AJ Styles and The Miz. Drew obviously retained the title in that match after taking out AJ and dropping The Miz with a Claymore. However, if you go and watch the match back, as The Miz has mentioned, it was actually John Morrison who handed the briefcase to the referee on that night and initiated the cash-in attempt. Now, The Miz recently started campaigning to get his briefcase back because the rules say that he must be the one to cash in and not, in this case, John Morrison. Now, tonight on Monday Night Raw, they did a storyline in an angle where The Miz was just so upset he'd blown his big opportunity in cashing in his Money in the Bank briefcase. This actually led him to lose a match against Grand Metalik on Monday Night Raw, so The Miz was at the lowest of lows. But later on in the show, there was a segment where WWE producer and backstage official Adam Pearce walked up to a disappointed Miz and Morrison in the backstage area. He then revealed that The Miz has officially regained possession of the briefcase because they were right all along about Morrison cashing in for him. Pearce made it clear that he did not agree with the decision, but he congratulated The Miz on getting his grubby little hands on the briefcase once again. Now, there's no word on the storyline update where we're going to go, with Miz once again having the Money in the Bank briefcase. It's interesting. Some people were up in arms when The Miz cashed in and they said, oh, I can't believe they've ruined this cash-in opportunity. I mentioned it before. There isn't really great opportunities for The Miz to cash in right now. The Miz is a safe bet. The Miz is a very safe bet as holding the Money in the Bank briefcase. Why? Because if he loses, it doesn't matter. It's not the end of the world. He's still The Miz. He is bulletproof. He's been there for 15 years. It doesn't really matter. If he wins, Miz is more than capable of being WWE Champion, being in the main event. He's main event at WrestleMania. He's been WWE Champion before. It'd be nice to see him champion again. So Miz is in that position where I think he's pretty much bulletproof as to what decision they do. I like the idea of him getting it back. I mean, he won it on technicalities, right? He won it in Wrestler's Court, and Otis was the previous Money in the Bank. This Money in the Bank briefcase, the male Money in the Bank briefcase this year, has been so convoluted. Like, it's Otis, The Miz takes him to court, then he wins it, then he cashes it in, but he didn't cash it in properly. He's getting it back. I think at this point, I mean, if there were no plans to have The Miz win the WWE Championship, they would just forget about it. They would play up the storyline of him blowing his opportunity and it'd be something for The Miz and Morrison to do. He got it back, which says to me there must be at least some plans for him to cash in successfully at some point. I still said that I felt the best idea for The Miz cashing in was when Randy Orton was WWE Champion and you would have Edge defeat Randy Orton for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania. Then, of course, Edge isn't going to be the champion for full time because he just can't wrestle full time. Then I would have The Miz cash in on him the following night on Raw. That would be a Raw after Mania moment. That would be good. Looks to me Drew McIntyre's holding on to the WWE Championship for a long time, so I have no idea when or where The Miz will cash in. I mean, he's got till May. I suppose he can wait until after WrestleMania. Technically, we'll have to wait and see. But not totally against it. I mean, we've seen enough legal loopholes when it comes to the whole Money in the Bank briefcase this year, so why not see another one? We also have an update on some official Raw entries for the Royal Rumble matches this year. The first two Raw Superstars are now official for the WWE Royal Rumble. On Raw last night, WWE United States Champion Bobby Lashley declared his spot for the 30-man Royal Rumble match. Lashley has also been rumoured for a United States Championship defence at the Rumble against Riddle, or possibly Riddle and Jeff Hardy. So, I mean, he absolutely could be in both matches. We've seen that numerous times. But also, we have some entries for the female Royal Rumble match as Nia Jax announced her spot in the Royal Rumble match. Now, her partner Shayna Baszler seemingly indicated she would be also entering the match. I don't think she's officially confirmed it yet, but pretty much Shayna Baszler is going to be in the match too. So that goes in addition to Daniel Bryan announcing on the previous episode of SmackDown that he will also be one of SmackDown's representatives in the Royal Rumble match this year. It's arguably, I think it's my favourite pay-per-view of the year, Royal Rumble, so I'm really excited for it. We're going to be doing tons of Royal Rumble stuff in January, so be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. You'll be able to check them out. We also have an update on the status of Nick Aldis, NWA World Heavyweight Champion, his status with the promotion and his contract. It looks like the NWA World Heavyweight Champion Nick Aldis will be staying with the National Wrestling Alliance, Aldis recently appeared on Conan's Keeping It 100 podcast and revealed that the NWA boss Billy Corgan picked up the option on Aldis' contract to keep him with the promotion at least for another year. He said, quote, Billy picked up the option with the NWA, so like I said, I had an option on my contract and Billy picked it up, and like I said, I would have not have opened up discussions with anyone without talking to him. This is Keeping It 100. I just care about the paper. And that's it. Billy's been very loyal to me and I to him, and I truly believe in what we're doing with the product, and I wouldn't walk away from it because we haven't even scratched the surface on what we could accomplish. Nick Aldis also gave an update as to the future of NWA Power. Of course, the series has been on hiatus ever since earlier this year due to the current pandemic. Aldis did note, though, that NWA Power, the flagship show of the promotion, will be back in 2021. He said this, quote, the reality is that Primetime Live is not an NWA product. NWA Power, that's our flagship, dude. Easy for me to say. That's coming back in 2021. NWA talents, of course, have been featured on the United Wrestling Network's Primetime Live shows, but it's been recently announced they're also on hiatus until 2021 at some time too. Aldis made it clear that Primetime Live was not an NWA product, and as I mentioned, that NWA Power will be returning next year. Now, Aldis' comments come after the NWA World Women's Champion Serena Deeb, AEW contracted talent, stated earlier this month that the NWA will probably start back up with Power tapings in early 2021, probably as soon as January. Now, the last NWA Power episode was the season 3 finale, a lost episode called Superpower on May 12. NWA recently filled Power's time slot on Tuesday with the YouTube show known as Shockwave that started on December 1st. When it comes to this NWA Power, I was a massive fan of it. I thought it was a fantastic show, proper throwback show, studio wrestling audience. The best thing I found about NWA Power was the promos. They had the podium with Dave Marquez there with the microphone, completely unscripted, just total awesome promos. Eddie Kingston cut some of the most amazing promos you have ever seen in NWA Power. It was honestly so good. So I'm glad to see it's returning. I'm surprised, to be honest, it's taken this long because, quite frankly, I know obviously the protocols we're putting on shows at the moment. I would have felt that obviously you would have no audience in the studio, but you could do the same ways that they would do it, like the Ring of Honor, MLW. You look at them and they're the perfect blueprint to do it, and I'm sure the NWA are probably looking at Ring of Honor and MLW and working with the legislator in Atlanta where they film those at GPB Studios. So I'm excited to see him return. The NWA was doing a great job, and I know they've had quite a few controversies as well in 2020 which have hurt them, but I'm excited to see that show return because I was genuinely a very big fan of it. And finally, we've had Ric Flair talk about a possible retirement match for Triple H. Now, he's not going to face him, don't worry, anything like that. But in an interview to hype the Raw Legends show next week, Ric Flair was asked about Triple H and his career. Now, Triple H skipped WrestleMania earlier this year for the first time since WrestleMania 23, where he was out with a torn right quadriceps. It's also, I think, the first year since Triple H signed with the company way back when that he hasn't wrestled a match for one whole year. So a lot of people have been saying, is this the end of Triple H? Is he winding down? Obviously he's winding down, but is it really the end of Triple H? Now, Triple H, he's 51 years of age. I think, like most people think, he's probably got a few years left in him and a few good matches left in him on the big stage. But Ric Flair would also agree with that statement. In a recent interview with WWE UK to promote next week's Raw Legends Night, Flair discussed Triple H's possible retirement down the road and why the game deserves a huge send-off from the WWE Universe. This is what Flair said, quote, I'm actually hoping to see him in a huge retirement match, even if he elects to retire in the future. He deserves every bit of it and all the recognition to go with it. I agree. I've mentioned this before that I think Triple H should have a big retirement match, and I think he will. Even if he doesn't want to, Vince McMahon, there's money to be made there. Absolutely, that would be the case for Triple H. But of course, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all the news stories we've spoken about here today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So make sure you get involved with the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button. It really does help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak with you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.